everyone in here at Drift Radio and everyone on YouTube. My name is Vinnie, and we're live streaming from Nørrebro, Copenhagen, Drift Radio. Today we are presenting a showcase by Bedside Productions. Bedside is an activist feminist porn collective, and today's program is going to start with a talk, and then we showcase some of our resident DJs and friends of and family of Bedside. So first I'm going to introduce Polina and Signe from Bedside, who's going to talk a bit about our work related to Bedside and porn. So here you go, Polina and Signe. Give them a big applause.
Thanks, Vinnie.
Thank you,
Thank
Vinnie.
you.
All right. Here we are.
Yeah, welcome, everyone. I guess maybe we should introduce ourselves and what we do at Bedside. So
Yeah, but it's going to be like a talk between us, just a conversation, flipping through our magazines together.
we brought
And-
4.
Well, these are actually, 4 different issues. So to begin with, what do you do at Bedside, Polina?
Okay, yeah, so I am currently the editor-in-chief of Bedtime Magazine, and that is our print porn publication that's been going for, I think, 3 years, maybe 4 years. So I do that with a small team of other people on the editorial team, and before that I dabbled in all sorts of other like online publication stuff with Bedside, but right now I'm really into the print porn aspect. Yeah.
Creating these beauties.
What about you, Signe?
What do I do at Bedside? Well, first of all, I'm in a lot of these magazines because I love to show off my body and I love to have fun with other cute people.
You're good at it too.
I love it. I love being in front of the camera. But that's not all. I've written some stuff, some erotic, juicy stuff. And I got involved actually by wanting to do sex education because Bedside Production is pretty unique by doing porn videos, porn film, doing porn magazines, and including sex education, which I think is a pretty nice and unique mix of things to throw in all together. So when you visit bedsideproductions.com, you'll find all of these delicious things gathered in one. And it might sound a lot like a commercial, and I'm selling this right now, but I'm actually just really proud to like combine sex ed and talk about how we actually have sex as humans and how we relate to our bodies, and then have the opportunity to go in and watch these awesome juicy films and read articles. So for me, there's this level of bringing porn to another level and to having like an intellectual take on sex. So when we want to get juicy and horny, there's also a lot of thinking and a lot of rationale behind what we do and what we want to do. And for me, that was why I got invested and started working with Bedside, basically.
Yeah, I agree. I think the sex ed aspect is really important. I mean, in the magazine, but also beyond. I think that we try to make sex ed that actually works, as in like responds to what people's curiosities and desires are, but also kind of fluidly shows good practices, like everything to do with harm reduction or safe sex or anything. And for me personally, just like working on a magazine where we are maybe a bit more explicit about that verbally, I feel like in terms of global impact, I know that we're a tiny magazine, but still, it's really good to try to fill up gap because sex ed is so subpar pretty much everywhere, whether it's in school or outside of school. And then, as we know from big mainstream porn, it's not often doing anything to promote sex ed. It's kind of often reversing it. So yeah, I think it's really important that we find a way to work with education in a way that's hot, playful, but also diverse. Yeah, and I think that's also like where you, Signe, have worked with that a little bit more, hands-on in some ways. Like I know that you've been involved in classrooms, so maybe you can, I don't know, speak to classroom a little bit.
Yeah, I would totally love to go into that. So we have this whole classroom connected to our website where you can go and watch the porn. You can also go in and actually Kate from Bedside, who is a fucking hero, has written the most beautiful articles, for example, on chemsex. So how do we use drugs and how do we achieve pleasure in so many ways? And really for me it's very activistic what's going on there, because it's breaking down these taboos on wanting pleasure. And obviously sex, drugs, porn, it's all something that goes under a very stigmatized umbrella of what we call fufu, means no, or shameful. So I'm really proud that we have this open take on drugs, sex, partying. We have a party crew here at Bedside, which you probably all know. They throw kinky parties in Copenhagen, and I think we're just so good at creating some awareness around how to party, how to do drugs, how to have sex with consent. And I'm really proud of making the films with an ethical, it's difficult to say when is a porn ethically produced, but I do think we take a lot of precautions to like create content that is being made under people's full consent, with people's full consent. So yeah, I think that's something I wish for the world to see more of.
Yeah.
But maybe let's go back to these beautiful magazines. Like you have been a huge part of creating this. And maybe the first question could be, why even produce a porn magazine in 24?
Okay, so I think, well, the answer is there's a highbrow answer, and then there's just a more honest answer, which is that it's fun. No, but myself and the team working on it now, like we kind of inherited it from the older team that set a really, really nice standard for it. So, we can't take full credit for being like, let's make a porn magazine. But I think that we love that it's a very tactile format that I guess in a way gives you a more considered experience with porn, but also like larger discussions that happen around the porn universe. So I don't know, in contrast to watching porn online, like this way you actually, you sit with content which is then surrounded by journalism and by like community-focused content, all the stuff that sort of puts the porn that we make into a larger context. For instance, just to like give you an example, maybe Signe, do you want to actually maybe hold this up?
Yeah, I would love to. Also, let's talk about these magazines now that we are streaming it. So I'm going to hold them up, and you can talk a little bit also about the general aesthetics maybe and what we're seeing.
Totally. I mean, but just first to like exemplify my last point. So for example, here we have this photo shoot. It's called Amigo. It's from the like last magazine, and it's a photo shoot that took place in Amigo sauna here, and is just kind of exploring sauna culture. And I mean, this is an example of like what I think the magazine does really well, where on the one hand, I think it's super hot, but it's also very beautiful. And it took a team of, like 25 people or something that involves people in our larger community, but also people through Bedside. So it's, I don't know, it's sort of, you can feel like there's like kind of a community-based mission around it, I suppose. And I think for me, that's what makes working with print so satisfying in this context specifically. And to your question about aesthetics, I think that it's really grown. I mean, the first magazine, like from the first magazine to the fourth, I think we've grown as Bedside has grown, like, and also how the general aesthetic culture around sex positivity has grown too, I think. At the beginning, it was much more of this DIY aesthetic, very like internet forward, and now it's, I think it's a bit like lovingly chaotic, but also kind of is cleaner and gives people room to express their own aesthetic, and if that makes sense. So it's more like a blank slate in a way for lots of input, I think.
And then I might want to add that also for the listeners who might not be seeing us holding up this gorgeous magazine, that it's very much a different experience from looking at mainstream pornography, which we may call it. You're not seeing just white, skinny bodies, plain bodies with big tits and big dicks. And it's not, this is not heteronormative porn. You're seeing some people whose gender you might not define from just looking at it. And you're seeing some genitalia that looks different from what we see so many places in porn. And for me, this is an important mission of Bedsides, to show different people's bodies off and to show sex between people of different genders, different sexual orientations, and further in the magazine of different body sizes. I really appreciate that this is both the magazine and our films are really portraying sex between people, which many people will go like, I haven't seen this before. And I think that's really a mission for me, is also, I have rather a normative body myself. I'm like pretty lean, pretty white, but I adore expanding. Like, that's not enough for me. Skinny, white, pretty. I want to see sex between all kinds of humans. And I think in this world we live in, only bodies that are white and rich and skinny get to be sexualized and get to have sex, basically. So I really am appreciating that we try to show off different sexual orientations in different people. So that was just one thing I wanted to share. What about the content of these? Will you say a little bit more maybe about what we feature?
Yes, I think, but before that, I kind of just wanted to comment on what you said in terms of us showcasing like a diversity of gender expressions and body types. I think one thing that we're trying to get better at is getting better at that. I mean, it's no secret that we are in Copenhagen and our community specifically is quite white, and that's basically the main thing. So for us, what we're doing now is trying to find the balance of making it like truly diverse, but also not in a way that feels like a gimmick or like we're just trying to capitalize on a trend, and while also making sure that everyone involved feels very comfortable. So I think it's just important to say, like, we try our best, but I think that there's definitely room for us to become much more mindful of the kind of privilege that we have in this community specifically. So like, with the magazine, myself and my colleagues, we try to work with this as much as possible, I think. And in terms of the content, I mean, we have a few things. So like, again, it's just very community minded. So we always have this piece of content called Bedside's Polina, where we feature somebody from the community who is just like, like a local icon, and do like a cute little interview. And Vinny has been in one also. Yep. No, but that's very much just like a hot little photo shoot and a few quick and cute questions just to, I don't know, give people like space to express themselves however they want to. We've got community nudes, which is it's going strong. People love this. Where we just crowdsource nudes from our community and post them. And in the last magazine, we called them breaking nudes. And again, we thought that was really funny and made like news headlines because we're lame. And then other than that, like the content really varies. I mean, in the last issue, there's.
I love these. I love the contribution pages because it also allows everyone in the city to be like, I want to be kinky, I want to be a porn. Some people want to be like an object for other people to desire, right? And I really love to allow everyone to just contribute to that. Yeah, no, same. I think it's just very cute to get all these submissions like so routinely. And then, I won't go on about the content too much more, but basically in the past few years, we've tried to make it more journalistic and critical as well. So I think in the last issue, for example, there's an article that looks into the
challenges in the state-run healthcare system here in terms of providing healthcare to non-binary people, for instance. And then another piece that I love, which is an interview with a sex worker and a fat activist, and just about like fat liberation and the intersections with porn and sex work. So it's, yeah, I think the magazine is growing as we are growing as well, and our like political understanding is growing in relation to Bedside. But I wanted to ask you, Signe, about something that you said. So I think a few minutes ago, you're really talking about some of the issues in mainstream porn and, you know, how Bedside stands out. But like, maybe could you get really concrete? Like, what do you think Bedside is doing in opposition to, or in opposition to mainstream porn, or just like differently from mainstream porn? And also, why is that important?
I love that, and luckily I get asked about this on different podcasts and radios and stuff, but here is actually an example. I both wanted to show you how cute it is that pregnant bellies are allowed in, that pregnant people can also do porn. And this is an example of where Bedside tries to work from an ethical foundation by the actual founders of Bedside showing off themselves and their own naked bodies. So when Anne-Sophie and Pauline, they founded Bedside Productions 4 or 5 years ago now, they actually shot the first ever Bedside porn. And in that way, they're not just creating a platform that shows off other people's nakedness or nudity and other people's sex, they're actually showing off themselves as well. Which, when we talk about pornography on a more like mainstream, wider scale, quite often there's a money institution behind where a person sits comfortably, never having to show off themselves, so therefore never being target for any kind of shaming or blaming by society. That person sits there just cashing in the money, basically, from showing off what other people did. And that's a really important aspect of trying to be an ethical production, is, are we making a lot of money on showing off other people? And to sort of elaborate further, another aspect of is this ethical would also be, are we paying our stars? And again, like Bedside is a small community-run platform, so we wish we could pay people much more. And we wish we could pay everybody for doing something in here, because it's super important, and porn is worth a lot. So that's another aspect, like, how much do people actually make from this? Then we try to work a lot around consent. So we have an emotional fluffer connected to all of our porn productions, which means we have a sort of emotional support available. So all through a production, an emotional fluffer, it's a person who has been picked by the stars. The stars in the film get to say, we prefer to have an emotional fluffer there that is male, female, non-binary. We prefer that it's my friend. So we actually allow quite a wide range of support to join in on the film set. And when it's been Anne-Sophie, or when I've been part of fluffing on external projects, it's very much about ensuring the safety and the comfort and the joy of the stars. So it's about, are you comfortable? Even down to like, do you need a sip of water? Are you cold? Because standing there naked on a set, you get freaking cold. I've done it myself. So like having that person available. And then during the process, emotional fluffers talk a lot about those person's boundaries, those people's boundaries, and what they like and what they don't like, and how they want to be talked to on set. Are they okay with being interrupted in the middle of an intimate scene, or would they like to play it to the end and then do a retake? So there's so many little things that you can do around those performers, those stars who do the porn. So being an ethical production is a lot of things. It's like, do you have a clear code of conduct? do you show how you have ensured that people are safe physically? Like, if there's no condom involved, how do we know that these performers are still safe? Are they being tested, so on and so forth? So if you want to look for ethical pornography, you sort of need to look for all of these things. Like, are they being transparent with how their production goes? Are they trying to ensure the safety of these performers? Are they making a ton of money, but the stars are not? So like when you have these big open sites where it's just uploads of different amateurs' videos, so like home videos. How much money is going to that couple in their own bedroom who've just been uploaded to this platform? So there's like so many things that go into whether something is like ethical, and we definitely do some of it, and there's more to be done.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really like accurate thing to say at the end, that we do some of it as that's within our jurisdiction, I guess, and that there are, of course, like other things that we can do. And then just, you know, to speak really quickly to, or not really quickly, however long it takes, but to the party aspect as well. Like, I think I'm not on the party crew, but as a party goer, I really love how you can tell that this ethical backbone is translated to the party. So, for instance, we like forever now we've had a code of conduct for the parties where it's like very clear how to party with grace and care. I feel like that's quite well accepted by people who go to our parties, and also there's this, you know, vibe at the parties that you're there because you kind of want to be part of this community, and you also like know what it takes to be part of that community in terms of behavior. So yeah, I think that's what for me is very gratifying with Bedside, is that like, even if say I work in the magazine and then you work in Classroom, like there's these overarching values, I suppose, that we can sense throughout like other aspects of what we do. Yeah. Absolutely. I had a question for you, and what was my question for you? Oh yeah, so but back on the ethics actually, I was wondering what your experience is like in terms of encountering ethics as a performer, because I know that we do like contracts, right, that sort of make a really clear process of how you're going to interact with your other co-stars, but also with Bedside. Can you talk a bit about what that process actually looks like?
Yeah, so I could take it from my own experience of having starred. I think being asked when you're signing that you want to be on something, being asked what you like to show, to have a major influence on the actual script of something is super valuable for me. So that sort of links to when Bedside are about to shoot or film, they try to cast people who actually are interested in, let's say it's a BDSM film. So the casting call actually describes what is it that's going to be shot approximately, but then those people who come in and apply, they actually get to specify, I love this and this. I would prefer to show this and that. And then immediately the film is being scripted around what they actually want to show. So for me, that to me feels really good. That to me ensures that I am being given agency, that it's me in the center. So I'm actually being treated like a star. And I super appreciate that. I also appreciate that Bedside tries to cast people who are compatible and who are into the same things, or who would have good chemistry. Because that to me is also extremely important, that those two people who are being brought together, they get to meet up, they get to sit there and talk. What's kinky about this? What do we expect? And then like, how do I say, hey, wait, I need a break. Something is not right. I'm gonna tap out for 5. So the fact that you talk to performers and have this contract in which you also get to back out. Actually, to full extent, people get to say, this bit of it, this material, I'm not okay with. That needs to be cut out, which is also extremely rare to see in production and film in general, that the performer can come in afterwards and see the material and be like, no, edit this. So I think there's a lot of empowerment of porn performers in the Bedside community. And when I'm in here, whatever I share in these magazines, nudes or whatever, I feel empowered by it. I feel it was my choice, and I feel I'm being portrayed in the manner that I wish to. So, did that even answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you talked a bit about kind of what the process is like for performers. But no, I agree. I think also from a magazine perspective, and maybe for everything else at Bedside, is also why sometimes things can just take a really long time. Like for us, when we make a magazine, I mean, one part of it is commissioning and getting the content, but then the other is this back and forth of like making sure that people are aware of their rights and also like what their options for if they don't like a piece or whatever, but also just making sure people are comfortable with what is ending up in print, and that takes quite a bit of time sometimes. But that's also, what I really like about, I mean, for me, Bedside is like, despite the fact that I think a lot of the work that we do is really artistic and professional, also super hot, like there is this spirit where it's not about like growing Bedside, it's more about doing it right in a sense, I suppose. And for me, that feels, that just means like morally, I agree with the Bedside approach. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, I think this whole like always trying to get better and always being open to critique and to feedback, and that a film production doesn't roll out with like the director and the producer being like on top, the powerhouses. They actually try and come down to this like eye level where, and that's another thing, I think a performer on set should never feel intimidated by someone above them in the hierarchy. I think it's super important to create that sense of a flat structure almost, where the performer is respected all the way through. So I super appreciate that Bedside always wants to take critique, and that everyone is making sure not to think they know the answer, because quite often we don't. And when we work with people, it's that human right there that has a unique sense of their boundaries and what they want to show. So it's super important that we work with them and that we don't try to know the answers and to just go sort of blindly forward. I think it happens sometimes in other productions that maybe we're not always on the same page, and there's a power hierarchy. So that's another cool thing about Bedside. It's all of these work groups basically that go into working with different things, and we all want to grow and get better. And as you said, we also need to get more diverse. We're really hoping that a lot of people will join us in the future and help us expand.
No, I hope so too. And I think we talked about this at like a recent meeting, but just the fact that like when Bedside started, it was much more, it still is underground, but it was much more in your face to depict sex this way and sex positivity and all that stuff. But now it is becoming more accepted on the mainstream level. So, I mean, on the one hand, that does hopefully mean that more people will feel comfortable enough to join. And I also want to say, like, I think anyone can reach out to join Bedside, basically. At least that's how I got involved with Bedside, and that's how most people got involved. So I think just important to say, like, the door is actually quite open, and there's a lot of room to, I don't know, learn or just create things depending on what you want to do. So it's just, if anyone is curious, there's opportunity.
Should we name drop Frida Retz also?
Yes.
Saying that we had this like awesome pornographer joining us recently or doing collabs with us. And she is just a powerhouse who was like, you guys do some porn, I do porn, let's collab. And that way we sort of help each other get out there and like promote porn work in general.
Yes.
Really check out Frida Retz. So cool.
Yeah.
Also, like, you just talked a little bit about people joining, and I'm kind of thinking about like the future of Bedside. Do you have any visions, like, for example, for the next magazine or the next film, if you got to like just do any project, do you have any like immediate thoughts or ideas?
I think, well, for the next magazine, that's the easiest one to answer. It's basically just to grow it, actually, because we, especially like with the quality and kind of the vision as it's been streamlining, is just, it would be nice to find a way to get it out to more people and also internationally speaking. And we're working on that and like distribution and all these things, but we're kind of learning by doing. And I think also just really diving into the themes we deal with. Like the theme of the next one is confessions, so we're going to be digging into all the things that word conjures in your mind. But then for a broader kind of like, what is the future of Bedside, or what's my dream for it? Honestly, for me, it's a bit of a blank slate, and I think that's a good thing. What I like about Bedside is that, as you said, like, there's no hierarchical vision per se, and there's no like direction that, is signed off and checked off and agreed on, and we work towards it, because we have so many different work groups that all have like their own vibe together and code of conduct and experience, and also sometimes aesthetic. Like everyone does their own thing, and then it comes together to become Bedside. So I think it's actually quite lovely that it feels like every group, whether that's the people who are working on the films or the magazine or the party group, has their own sort of like reason for working with Bedside and also building it. And then that creates this organic organization. So I think for me, I would just love to see the groups like thrive more, I suppose, and become more empowered in what they do. Yeah.
Really cool.
What about you?
You inspired me. I was like thinking, what would I answer? And I think I would really love if I had like energy and power in me to go into the party group. I have like, yes, I really would love actually to join the party crew and and join them with sort of a more fluffy, glittery daytime vibe. And I have no clue what they're gonna think or say about it. But I really would love to see actually these sex parties and these sex positive events sort of taken into the daylight and sort of out of the black techno basement. Yes, that is, Vinny is just shouting at us that we're doing this right now, which...
We are.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we totally are.
It's really nice. We have all these flowers and green plants and cuties sitting in front of us. It's a really nice daytime vibe.
Yeah.
But I would really love to see like pink, fluffy, full-on lights to bring this sense of we're fully aware and here vibe into it, which I think is a huge challenge, because sometimes it flows really well when there's like loud music, really great techno, and your whole like pelvic floor is just like working with the bass.
Like
and
already starting to vibrate, yeah.
So could we bring the sex positivity into daylight in a like physical sense? I thought that would be super interesting to do. And in terms of a magazine, I think I would just really like to do an edition of like tiny people dominating really large people. So
yes,
I
specific.
think,
I like it.
Yeah, that would be really fun to have that sort of theme. But I was actually just thinking of how there are sort of themes for the different magazines, right? Even though they all have like a fuck buddy feature, and they have like a piece of erotic literature, and they have the contribution pages, and they also sort of have these like nice, awesome themes. Like this one was sort of it's called Circle of Life, but I'm guessing it's sort of like pregnancy as and like do you know how you come up with these like themes and What's the thought and how's the process behind like deciding what's the next magazine theme?
Yes, absolutely. So I think with this one, the Circle of Life issue, we had a few pieces of content that were sent to us from like before that we knew we needed to publish, and it already dealt with stuff like age play and pregnancy. And so I don't know, we unified it under this theme because we thought that it was broad enough that like for new people contributing, it's open enough that people can have their unique take on it, but we also have like enough tangible grounding points, I suppose, to make it feel like a complete piece where it's like, yeah, it's about birth, it's about death, it's about teenagehood, childhood, pregnancy, all these things. So yes. And then, but for the ones afterwards, I think we've just kind of gone full on like throw words out at a whiteboard and throw out content ideas and just riff like that, like in our small editorial team. So the last issue's theme is liquid. And again, same thing, like we chose it because we thought, okay, liquid is so broad. It is metaphorically, it speaks into fluidity, like in terms of gender. Aesthetically, there's so much that it just makes sense for a porn magazine. Yeah, and
have we shown the very first ever bedtime magazine?
No, I don't think we
so
did.
So cute.
It's
and
cute.
Actually, you talked a little bit about the aesthetics of it also being like, maybe you could flip through it and show us how the first one that came out is Aiko is our fucking awesome graphic designer. Did a lot of these designs and there's a lot of this like computer aesthetics.
Yeah. So like for example, this, which looks super sick. And yeah, I feel also just very much captures a certain, it just captures like a certain, time, and also like something that is very, core to Bedside as a whole, which is this like playful attitude. And also, I think you can tell that a lot of us like going to the club, like in general, just from everything that you look at, there is that aesthetic presence. So yeah, that's actually, I forgot about this. Oh, the origins.
And super cool commercials for the films, obviously. So this film was coming up soon, like Club Romance. Super kinky, filmed in a local club here in Copenhagen, where Bedside did a takeover and filmed a super juicy porn. But these, in general, I guess that's the aesthetics, right? In today. It's like a lot of the Windows 98
exactly.
Funny text boxes.
At least that's how we started, right? So
I also think, should we say something about how we try to promote like sex workers around?
That's we should we should definitely talk about that.
Definitely talk about that.
Okay. So I think
here's one, for example.
Yeah, so we did that for a while. Just in the magazine, we did that where it's like featuring people's OnlyFans, and some promo for that. That was one concrete thing. But overall, like I think what we've done with Bedside, and maybe we haven't actually talked about this a lot, so I'm curious to see if you agree, but I think from the beginning, what we've done is we've really kind of elevated or like featured sex worker voices in spaces that, especially at the time, people didn't necessarily want sex workers. Like, I don't know, I feel like we've always had pieces written by sex workers, or maybe sex workers like going to do talks with Bedside or something. Like there's been a lot of just active thought into opening up a room for the sex worker perspective and voice and all the things, which, I think just in general, I don't see that much love. Like, I feel like now I see sex workers taking space finally, which is great, but often still very much in this thing where it's like either it's strict sex worker activism or it's, for an NGO or something, or very much like being this social media personality talking to that cause specifically. But this sort of like sex worker voices just being a grounding part of a lot of things that an organization does, I don't see that often. What do you think?
Yeah, I just super love this whole idea that we're creating this magazine not to benefit us, but actually to promote some people who don't have many places to promote their work. It's really difficult as a sex worker to actually get good promo around. And when you think about how Bedside magazine, Bedtime magazine has actually gone out quite mainstream now, or at least you can buy it like in peach over here on the corner.
At Charlottenburg as well. Like
Charlottenburg, like huge art hall, very like out in the daylight. So we do promote some people who really need that promotion around, and who don't have many places to maybe promote to a wider audience or a mainstream audience.
Yeah.
So I think that's a cool. It's sort of a cool from you talking before. I had this feeling of how we mix people from different places, and some of us. It's like a mix of people from so many different privileges and from so many different backgrounds, and obviously we are standing here today able to do that. We're not at work right now, and that's a privilege. So I just really like that we're a mix of people here, and that we try to make space. And I guess we're looking to expand, I guess, also on film production. Actually, we would really like for the people who don't feel like they have a place to go out and spread the word about themselves. We would love to see you guys come in and be like, I have this film idea, or I have this idea for the magazine, and to just come in and take over. Like we're super into that. And I guess the reason why, if you look through our films, for example, we don't have enough different skin colors, and there's so much we want to do more of, but simply because in Bedside we've talked about this, where we want to show some people with a dark skin, but then they're going to have this team of white directors and producers and fluffers around them, and that's not ethical according to a lot of us. We don't find that right, so we're super looking for people to come in and be like, we want to do this. It would be so awesome to make a film like that, and to take on people who feel that they have something to contribute that you don't see every day. We sort of try to assemble crews who we're not going to be a bunch of straight people trying to make a film about transsexuality.
Yeah.
So we just need loads more people who want to do cool shit about being trans, or about being of non-white, or So that's another thing I wanna say here, so that hopefully some people will come along.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
No, I fully agree. I think across the organization, diversifying in that way is super important. While also acknowledging that it is I think for us now, we're like, oh yeah, sex positivity, this is so easy. But I remember when I first joined Bedside, I was quite nervous to just what it would mean to work in porn. Where now I'm like, yeah, whatever. But so just say I think it's also, I think we're aware that there are boundaries and challenges with becoming involved in an organization like ours. Not to say that we would love that those boundaries and challenges didn't exist, but in a structural perspective, it is, it can be, I guess, a little intimidating sometimes. But I think going back to something that you said earlier, Signe, I think you were just talking about where we exist and what we make. But I was curious with your perspective in terms of about how we communicate about Bedside in general and where. Because, for example, as we all know, Instagram, you can't even write the word sex on it. We have to write segs, we're 10-year-olds basically. So kind of the main channels or platforms that typically we would use to promote our work or our community are kind of difficult. So in your mind, where are we right now? And also where would you like to see us be, if that makes sense?
Killer question. It's so difficult because even having a bank account in any bank in this country, if you do anything that has to do with sex, I'm a sexologist, I can't have a bank account if I'm a sexologist most places.
That's what? I had no idea.
Insane. I tried for this international bank, and they're just like, it's something with sex. No. And I specifically actually send them some invoices where some of the porn that talks about bedside and porn maybe was on or whatever. And the world is just so scared of this. Like, all of the institutions out there are like, whoa, which is why it's quite unique to be like, oh, Charlottenborg, the art gallery Charlottenborg wants to sell this. Oh, like Peach, the sex shop here in Copenhagen, is going super like overground, like into the daylight, having loads of different customer types and making this wonderful, like, neat little shop where the magazine can also be sold. So, like, I think slowly we are climbing out of the darkness, but you can't promote via Instagram. You can't promote via Facebook. All of this meta shit is just preventing us from sharing this because the stigma lives. So I don't actually have like a good answer as to how the hell do we promote more. But I will say that sometimes when we push for it, for example, Frida Ritz again pushed this local cinema, who actually is, they're a huge, like, Empire is a large cinema with several screens showing all of the big ass films, and they just took in this little art porn and showed it in one of the actual screens in that cinema. So I think if we're willing and we have the time and the energy and we want to fight this, like we want to do activistic work, we can go around and push our way in when we are in Copenhagen. Because obviously we live up here, northern little Scandinavia. It's probably a lot more difficult other places in the world. Yeah.
For sure. You know, yeah, we do have the benefit of the size of the city and also just the way it operates, I guess, and the culture and stuff. No, but yeah, I think about this too. And also it's like, maybe these are kind of endless conversations that we had at the last Bedside meeting, but it's like a trade-off, right? Because the reason that now we can get more of our work into I don't know, cinemas or into art bookstores is because like the culture and the sex positivity in this culture has become like palatable, and there is some dilution of it because it's now becoming marketable. So it's like, okay, how do you then participate in the market of what cool sex positivity looks like today without losing the DIY core, I suppose? And I don't think there's an easy answer for that. I just think about that a lot. But which leads me to actually a question, because I think, and Vinny mentioned it too, like we're an activist collective, and you just said the word, our activism. Why do you think we're an activist group? Because I mean, for me, maybe, like it wouldn't be the first thing that comes to my mind. My mind in terms of everything we talked about, like feminist values, like working towards better sex education, sex positivity, ethical porn, yeah. But in terms of activism, capital A, that's not the first thing that comes to my mind. So why do you think we are activists?
Well, first of all, I think this is very political. And I actually thought to ask you, like, are you ever scared that anybody at your money-paying job ever find out that you're doing this porn magazine and that they'll totally stigmatize you and it could have consequences for you, right? So, like, I think choosing to get paid very little to do very much and to want to put this in people's faces and to have this dream to actually change a stigma around sexuality and around porn. I think that is activistic at its core, that we want to go out there to different galleries and to try and show it as widely as possible. Like, get on film festivals and try and get out there. For me, I call things activism when they're trying to kill a stigma or to change the society that we live in and the current norms. So I think by choosing to do porn the way the Bedside does, it is actively trying to also undermine, like, there's an aspect we haven't talked about like being affordable and like money. That's also a huge taboo in the world, but like these magazines are super cheap, and the website to access and see our films are super cheap, because a lot of the people who are BIPOC or who are maybe young and being told in school, like, that's a thing I meet a lot, like, we will only talk to people about sex if they're 18 years old or above. And I'm like, hey, people actually have sex from a much younger age, and they have difficult sex because no one talks to them about it. So yeah, there's also like an aspect in Bedside of like trying to make this accessible and affordable and reachable for a lot of different groups who maybe, if you're not super wealthy, how much money do you have to spend on porn? So it's activism in a way that it's trying to go against capitalism. It's trying to go against these stigmas, and it's trying to take sex and the need to use pornography and to see other people have sex. So many people watch porn. Yeah. So like there is a need. So we're trying in that way to do some activism that will fight against all of these norms that we have around sex.
No, that's, I mean, yeah, a very good answer. And now I'm like, yes, okay, I'm actually like really on board with you. And actually it reminded me of a statistic that came out in the past month. You probably heard about it, but like the difference between boys and girls in Gen Z, where like it's some crazy statistics that overall boys in Gen Z are way less progressive than girls are, like way less than boys who are millennials, etc., in a very like concerning way. So it just made me think of that, where I'm like, okay, actually, yeah, maybe, you know, luckily if we've been exposed to this kind of work long enough, like slowly things start to shift in our subconsciousness, but there are a lot of people who do have access to this. And I actually have a funny anecdote. You asked about my work. I work part-time at the EU, actually, and I'm a freelance journalist, also part-time. But at the EU, I was really nervous to tell anybody about this for a while, and then I just started being like, whatever. And one of my colleagues actually had a coffee with me, and he was like, listen, my teenage son is starting to watch porn, and I want to make sure that, you know, whatever he watches is good. Like, what should I do? So I just gave him like a list of resources, and this is like one of the managers in the agency that I work. So it was a nice moment where I was very nervous, and said I gave like a list of ethical porn resources for this guy's teenage son. I think that we have to finish soon.
So
soon.
Can I say that means you're kind of out there to your workplace?
I mean, I'm not like yelling about it, but I'm not hiding it at all anymore. And if people ask, I say, and I brought it up a few times. Yeah, I think it just became easier at some point. And again, for me, the surprising thing has that maybe people are judging me behind my back, but in general, people have just been really curious. And especially when we talk about the value of it, like, you know, the lack of sex education, how all these like harmful standards around porn, like people get it. So it's been quite a few interesting conversations.
And I just want to end off then on that note, that it's the more of us who can be courageous and like be out, I think the better. And so much respect to you for being out like that in a huge institution, and for everybody who is doing it around Denmark and around the world today. Like, we cheer and we celebrate that you are out. And yes, more of it, right? Yeah, because the more of it, the more the stigma falls, and the more it's like, okay, this is actually normal. Like, it's fine. Yeah. And take your time. It's fucking hard coming out. Yeah. But are those good words to end on? I think so. Unless, does anyone have any questions from the audience? No, that was a hard no. Oh, okay.
You mentioned the statistics around the boys and girls, and the girls becoming more progressive and the boys actually now starting to go down. In terms of engaging kind of cis men in this kind of space, how do you see that playing out? Because I think that traditionally, as a cis man myself, like I've been into some queer spaces.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Let's have a question on air.
I thought I was loud enough. So you mentioned this boys becoming less progressive and girls becoming increasingly more progressive, and a lot of spaces that bedtime parties and stuff are maybe not spaces that are for cis men for understandable reasons. But if we want the change to happen, how do you encourage more cis men to engage? What did you say to that man whose son was watching porn, which would have been very kind of cis straight porn, I'm assuming? How do you encourage them to watch more bedside stuff and actually come to spaces that Bedside makes and creates and actually help them to engage without kind of just shaming and pushing them away?
Right. Oh God, it's a really long answer, so I'm going to try to be really quick with my top three. Number one, for me, with what I work with, it's organically like integrating cis male voices where it makes sense. So in terms of the writers, in terms of people doing the shoots, in terms of people in the shoots, or the content or whatever, that's one way. So it's kind of making an effort to work with everyone. And then the other, I mean, I think talking about our values around sex ed and sex positivity and how it benefits everyone relationally versus only talking about queer liberation, and I mean, kind of balancing talking about what we do in wherever it makes sense. Sorry, I'm trying to be really fast, but yeah.
Can I also add that I think maybe some queer spaces need to be for themselves, and it needs to be promoting queerness to other queers and to make a little bit of a push against the cis world. It's not really Bedside's job to try help the cis man. We want to, and the cis men are super welcome, and I love that you're here. And we want more cis men to be interested in this. But that's the job of the cis man, to be interested in other people's worldview, other people's personalities and identities. So I think that job lies actually on their part, because we are not rejecting of penis owners
No.
We have loads of nice dicks and loads of cis people involved with this. So if this is like pushing away any cis men, I think they need to do the work to figure out why.
I actually feel differently than you do, but we don't have time to discuss this. So
that would be nice, though.
Yeah, that would be nice afterwards.
Let's have another discussion.
Yeah, we will. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks for talking.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. Bye.
And thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.